I'm Jane Secker, and you're listening to episode 8 of StoryCast 21. In 2016, ISIS bombers targeted the Belgian capital Brussels, killing 32 civilians and injuring more than 300 people. The podcast you're about to hear is a graphic eyewitness account of the attack as it unfolded. This is Terror in Brussels Airport.
My name is Alex Rossi. My job title is National Correspondent for Sky News. I was at Brussels Airport on the 22nd of March 2016. I was flying to Tel Aviv, back to my base in Jerusalem in Israel.
It is just over 4 days since a wave of coordinated bombings and shootings left.
I was in Brussels to cover the arrest of Salah Abdul Salam. He was one of the people wanted in connection with the Paris attacks, which had happened 5 months earlier.
After raids across France and into Belgium, now a massive...
I'm Jane Secker, and you're listening to episode 8 of StoryCast 21. In 2016, ISIS bombers targeted the Belgian capital Brussels, killing 32 civilians and injuring more than 300 people. The podcast you're about to hear is a graphic eyewitness account of the attack as it unfolded. This is Terror in Brussels Airport.
My name is Alex Rossi. My job title is National Correspondent for Sky News. I was at Brussels Airport on the 22nd of March 2016. I was flying to Tel Aviv, back to my base in Jerusalem in Israel.
It is just over 4 days since a wave of coordinated bombings and shootings left.
I was in Brussels to cover the arrest of Salah Abdul Salam. He was one of the people wanted in connection with the Paris attacks, which had happened 5 months earlier.
After raids across France and into Belgium, now a massive...
Salah Abdul Salam was born in Belgium. He came from the Molenbeek area in Brussels. Now that's where the ISIS cell who carried out the Paris attacks, that's where they came from.
They had thought he was in Syria, but intelligence has led police to...
ISIS was a terrorist organization, and they had taken a huge swathe of Syria, they'd taken a huge swathe of Iraq. They wanted to get all Muslims to conform to their view of what Islam was. And now they were bent on carrying out attacks in the West as well.
For several hours, gunfire, grenades and heavy weapons could be heard.
In Paris, of course, 130 people were killed in a series of coordinated suicide bombings. And after Abdul Salam's arrest, it was time really to go back to base in the Middle East. It's all a bit of a haze, but I think we must have got to the airport at around 7:10 that morning. I was with a guy called Ariel, who was the Middle East videotape editor, and he was also producing as well, and with a guy called Samir, who was a Palestinian from East Jerusalem, and they were on assignment with me. Because of the additional security flying to Israel, they insisted on, perhaps getting there 3 hours before. And we'd just gone through security. I didn't know that at the same time, 3 terrorists from the ISIS cell who were responsible for the Paris attacks had also entered the airport, alongside hundreds of passengers, many of them commuters, some of them holiday makers.
Passengers for Air Arabia Maroc.
My name is Sebastien Bellin from Brussels, Belgium. Even though I was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, I am 42 years old.
Immediately to gate B33.
I was flying from the main terminal, Terminal 1, I think, at Brussels, to New York on American Airlines.
We are now closing the gate.
And I was rushing to the check-in counter.
So at this point, we've actually crossed into duty-free, so we're on the other side of security. The three ISIS terrorists, Najim Lakraoui, Ibrahim El-Bakraoui, and Mohammed Abrini, they were walking calmly through the airport, getting ready to detonate suicide vests, which were packed with nail bombs. They were inside the departure hall, not far away from where we were standing.
I quickly checked in, and as they were handing me my boarding pass, that's when the first bomb went off about 50 yards behind me.
The building, the fabric of the building shook, it rocked, dust starts coming out everywhere, and we just sort of hunkered down. I mean, we knew it was in the airport on the check-in side. What we didn't know was that one of the terrorists, Ibrahim El-Bakraoui, had just detonated his bomb.
And I just saw, the ceiling crashing down, just the destruction. My intuition said they were going to come in and start shooting up, or there'd be another bomb where everybody was rushing to. So I rushed towards the security check-in counters. I was, zigzagging people, but the second terrorist was going towards the main exit. I passed him, and he detonated the bomb.
And we're still crouched down at this stage on the far side of the partition. The second terrorist, this is Najim Lakraoui, had also detonated his device, but at the opposite end of the hall from the first explosion. We kind of knew what was happening, but of course, at this point, we'd no idea the extent of the carnage.
I don't know when I came around. The ringing in my ears was just unbearable. And I saw just hell around me, just complete hell. Dead people and a lot of dust, a lot of debris. There was kind of bones and flesh just kind of sticking out of my hip. My legs weren't responding, and I could see like holes into my legs, in both legs. I started trying to slide myself away from just this horror that was around me.
After the second explosion, we stayed where we were, sort of crouching down, trying to assess what was going on and process what was going on. I spoke to my wife and reassured her that we were okay and told her to keep the kids away from the TV until I could talk to them. But I'm safe, Samir's safe, Ariel's safe.
And let's just bring you some breaking news. We're hearing reports of an explosion at Brussels airport.
I phoned through to the news desk in London.
Just tell us what's happening and what those officials are saying to you all.
We're all being moved out of...
I said, look, I have no doubt in my mind that the airport has just come under a terrorist attack.
We can't confirm. That hasn't been confirmed by the authorities.
And of course, we started recording and gathering pictures where we were.
Smoke at Brussels airport terminal after what sounded like 2 explosions happening just before 8
We were doing what we paid to do. We're journalists. We record things, we chronicle, we document.
Alex, and we can see you now on the phone to us. Just tell us what's happening.
We had to assume really that many people were dead, badly injured on the other side of the security that we'd gone through. My biggest fear was that wasn't the end of the attack.
They were evacuating, dead people. You saw dead people under blankets. And I started being dragged, and I'm hanging on to my left leg because I thought it was detached. So I didn't want to leave my left leg behind me. In the distance, I saw a baggage cart. Someone brought that over to me. and somehow I managed to lift myself up on the cart. It's getting harder to breathe. You're losing so much blood. So you're like, man, I'm getting somewhere, but I don't know if I'm going to run out of time.
So it's now about half an hour after the explosions. And of course, at this point, we didn't know that there was also a third bomber.
We're all being moved out of the airport now towards the
I was
emergency.
pretty much locked at the phone doing live broadcasts. We used the iPhones to do a live broadcast in Vision. I had two phones and I was using the other phone so I could hear the questions from the presenter in the studio.
Just tell us what's happening and what those officials are saying to you all.
There are fears that there may be other attackers.
But I think at that time, certainly one of the things I was thinking is that we may be actually walking into something far worse further along.
Now, as we can see, all those passengers having to leave that terminal building along with you. Talk to us about the security at the airport.
So at that point, I'm on the cart, and they pushed me to the back of the airport, and I was kind of furious. I was like, no, go to the front. They're yelling at me, saying, no, there's a third bomb. I was like, I'm dying, like I'm bleeding. Look, and there's already huge puddles of blood on the cart. I asked for some water, and so the young airport worker comes back with the cup of water, and I drink it, and then I look at him and I say, look, just push me to the front of the airport. I can't stay here. If I stay here, I'm going to die. I can see him completely tormented by the idea of, this guy, like, what should I do? Because everyone's saying, no, you got to stay. And I just say, look, trust me, don't worry. And so he just pushes me up to the front near the elevators, and where we can't go any further because of debris, he just leaves me there.
Just pictures, though, coming into us from the scene at the metro station in Brussels, where up to 10 people potentially have died. This is Maelbeek metro station in the EU quarter. The explosion there happened.
By the time the bomb went off on the metro, that was just about an hour afterwards. We're trying to escape. We're not sure what's going on.
Go down. So head towards the exit.
There's absolute chaos in the airports. Nobody really is in control.
Explosions, but we're being ushered through this area now.
When you looked at the faces of people walking through the airport, it was clear that they were really frightened, because we didn't know at this stage whether or not there was going to be a further attack inside the airport. We're sort of slowly getting towards safety, trying to come out of the airport. We're being shepherded through to where the planes normally take off. But of course, on the other side, for people like Sebastien, it was a completely different scene.
So they pushed me up to the front near the elevators. And so for a few minutes, I'm just all by myself, just wondering, wow, is this a good decision that I made? And, kind of yelling. There's still so much debris everywhere and dust. And luckily, about 4 firemen turn the corner. They pick up the cart and they wheel me to outside. For the first time, I feel the fresh air. My body's little by little going into shock. I'm sweating, and kind of an emergency worker comes over to me, tell him I need to get into an ambulance. I can feel myself going. And the next thing I know is I'm in the ambulance, and in the ambulance I'm just overwhelmed with emotions. I'm like, I can't believe I made it.
We're now being moved out of the building to where the planes are parked up. We have been given instructions.
If I think through, it must have been at around 10:15 that we finally made it to safety, and we knew that we were going to be okay. We went down some stairs and ended up on the apron of the airport.
Move through and out at the moment.
We learned later that the third bomber from the airport, this is the man who was picked up on the closed-circuit television, Mohammed Abrini, his bomb had failed to detonate and he'd fled the airport and he was later arrested. In total, 32 people were killed by the 3 suicide bombs. Hundreds were injured, but it was only much later that you hear the stories of people like Sebastien who were in departures when the attack happened.
I've had 13 surgeries since that day. I still have my legs, but the whole inside my leg is all metal. You know, I've accepted my disability, my permanent disability, but I think it's, you know, I'm actually very lucky to have been so close to death. Those other victims, me as a survivor, I carry them with me with so much gratefulness that I'm not one of them, and that gratefulness is something that has created a lot of positive energy in me.
I've had quite a few close calls over the years. Moments, you know, if you'd arrived moments earlier or left moments later, things would be very different. And I find it hard to think about it without thinking about luck. Really. Luck is all there is sometimes.
Terror in Brussels Airport was recorded by Tom Gillespie, writing and production by Rob Mulhern. For more information on this story, log on to skynews.com/StoryCast21. Next time, 2 rival biker gangs go to war in the UK Midlands.
Members of both groups had found themselves on the same flight back into Birmingham from Alicante. They both made calls to their people on the ground in the Midlands to tell them to meet them when they landed at the airport. In total, 30 bikers assembled in the arrivals hall at Birmingham Airport and started attacking each other.